The Bengals fell to the New England Patriots 16-10 here at Paycor Stadium in their season opener. And where do we even begin with what happened here? It was a very surprising and disappointing performance for the Bengals to only score 10 points with an offense that's supposed to be one of the most explosive offenses in the NFL. And then a lot of the same issues that you were used to seeing from the Bengals defense last year came up again. So talking to some of the players following the game in the locker room, you could tell just it was a disappointing feeling and a frustrated feeling in the Bengals locker room, and Zac Taylor said as much in his post-game press conference. He boiled it down to two things: losing the turnover battle, the Bengals had 2 turnovers, and not being able to make tackles on defense. And going back to what I was saying about some of those things that you saw from the Bengals defense last year crept back into the game today with those missed tackles and just a disappointing performance in the run game, giving up 170 rushing yards to the Patriots, with 120 coming from Ramondre Stevenson. And the most surprising thing about that was everyone knew that with Jacoby Brissett, a career backup quarterback, handling the offense for the New England Patriots with not many receiving targets that really looked like they could scare Cincinnati's defense, everyone knew the Patriots were going to try and run the ball on the Bengals, and that was going to be their focal point of their offense. And they were able to do so. The Bengals got pushed around up front by an offensive line that's one of the worst in the league. So a disappointing day for defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo's group. So we will see how they bounce back. Dax Hill had a very rough performance in terms of tackling in his first start at outside cornerback for the Bengals. But if you're looking for a bright spot for Cincinnati's defense, it was that they got through the game healthy on that side of the ball. BJ Hill went down for a little bit, but he was able to walk off on his own power, so that is a good thing. Well, let's go back to the offense, because there's a couple things to discuss there. Joe Burrow was back on the field for the first time since mid-November, and he and the Cincinnati's offense struggled. There were virtually no attempts down the field from a deep shot perspective. And when I asked why that wasn't the case to Ja'Marr Chase, he said, you have to ask the coaches. So Ja'Marr Chase not practicing in all of training camp and not getting a deal done with the Bengals front office is significant for a lot of reasons, but surely the lack of participation in training camp with Joe Burrow, no matter how many banked reps those two have, certainly played an impact today, with T. Higgins not able to play with a hamstring injury. Joe Burrow didn't even throw for 200 yards today, just a stat line that you weren't used to seeing from him in such a highly anticipated game with him back on the field. But a bright spot for the offense was in the second half. They did figure out how to get the run game going. Zach Moss looked really good in his debut for the Bengals, but a lot of things to figure out for Cincinnati, and you could just tell, as I mentioned, there was frustration. Joe Burrow said a number of times he wanted to go back and watch the tape before commenting more on what really went wrong for Cincinnati's offense. So they will look to regroup and get ready for a big-time game against the Chiefs, but certainly not the start anyone was hoping for. The Bengals now have started 0-1 5 times out of 6 years with Zac Taylor as head coach. So hopefully these Bengals can get those corrections made in the next couple of days and regroup and come out with a better performance against the reigning world champs, and that is Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead next week. All right, that's it for some post-game thoughts. Be sure to keep it at Cincinnati.com throughout the rest of the week for your coverage of the Cincinnati Bengals.